Alright, welcome back to the channel. This is Prickly Hedgehog. Let's take a look at the 2025 and beyond video, which was outstanding and kind of threw me for a loop because there was a lot of stuff in here that I was not expecting. We began with lots of cut shots here interspersed with images of the dynamic campaign interface there, the whatever GUI they have going on there. Looks really impressive, if this is what the final guise is. Gotta get my mouse ready here in case we need to pause, but yeah, I'm not, let's go back there. Just a smidge, some very impressive. We went too far there. Pretty great visuals there too. Just wanted that other little bit there, but yeah, so obviously sped up there, things are moving very quickly through the environment there. These guys look like they are fleeing the scene while a large gaggle of F-18s infiltrate into the area. And set in Georgia, by the looks of the map. Not clear yet if we're going to get an updated Caucasus to reflect the new map technology. That hasn't been mentioned. So lots of interesting symbology here. Quite a lot of detail on this map. And no surprises really. I'm not seeing any, hidden aircraft that we didn't see elsewhere, unless I'm mistaken. So we could use more Red Air Force, but I don't think we're going to get those in the immediate future, which we have discussed many times in the past. So, and I apologize, I'm not a huge ground guy in terms of recognizing. Looks like some T-72s there based on the long barrels. So I'm not a huge ground weapon dude, so if you see something that I missed, let me know. In terms of assets there for the ground. And this popped out at me, of all things to have been interested in. These look like new trees to me, so I could be wrong, but the grass looks fantastic. Here we are flying in the hind with the telltale cockpit fan there, but definitely these look like new trees to me as a new terrain feature, so I could be wrong, but just popped out at me. And Hellcat. Looking pretty good. A lot of detail in the engine cowling here, so a lot of work's gone on here underneath these panels. And probably some more texturing to be done here. It's hard to tell because it's in motion. Pilot model looks pretty good. So I think we're a fair way into the production and release of this aircraft. So stay tuned for 2025 and see what that brings. We have obviously other aircraft too. We'll come to the Corsair in a sec. And one of the F1s, I forget the variant on this. This is the one with the refueling probe. Is it the CE, BE? I can't remember. I apologize to Aegis, but great aircraft. Flying over Marianas there. Some main battle tanks rolling through the desert. F-14D always looks dramatic, bouncing on its hydraulics and landing gear. And speculation on whether or not the F-14D was going to be introduced. I'm not seeing that. We'll come to that topic in just a sec. There's the Zero being shot at. The C-130J, awesome, looks really good. That'll probably be a release in 2025. Lots and lots of shots of the MiG-29, the A-10 there. New soldier animations, really cool. New uniforms, definitely much more realistic. We've got the proper boots and weapons and things, so it's looking really good. Instead of BMP or something getting obliterated. Nice shot of the F4 wing there. Over probably Berlin. We'll come back to Berlin in a sec here. And here we go, the F100. Granelli Designs throwing in their lovely looking aircraft. It's not showcased quite so well in this blurry image, but carrying a lot of weapons there. Powerful aircraft, of course, but ancient by certainly some of the aircraft we have in the game right now, but will still be a very popular Cold War aircraft. A lot of people enjoy what they're doing here and what we're seeing with some of these older aircraft. I'd love to see something like the A4 as a full fidelity as well, but There's a whole bunch of aircraft that could fit into that particular niche. One thing we'll talk about this a little bit more on the SITREP tomorrow, hopefully, but the angled refuel pipe that you can see here, or tube, actually can be swapped out for a straight one, and I believe you can also change the afterburner, because there were modifications to that or improvements to that in slightly later variants of the aircraft as it was developed. So cool stuff. Looks good. More of that dynamic campaign map. And what do we got there? The F-15C doing what it does. Good shot of the Phantom. And nice little interlude here, if you like, or sort of rounding out that series of action shots. The Eurofighter escorting a B-52. See a little bit of detail in here. Looks like some fuel tanks rather than weapons, I think, on this one, but there's that. Yeah, a little bit of detail here. I still think, similar to the Hellcat, we've still got some more work to do. I suspect this is probably a flyable aircraft in the game, although it'll be pretty raw and there's probably lots of stuff that needs to be done yet. I don't think we're going to see this in 2025 unless there's been an amazing amount of work by Heapler and True Grit, a Herculean kind of level of work to bring this into 2025. It could happen at the end of the year, say as an early access kind of purchase, but I suspect this will be a 2026 release. But I'd be happily pleased to be proved wrong on that one. There are lots of good shots of this aircraft in this sequence. Some people are talking about the Nighthawk being introduced as well. We only saw this one shot, so I think this is more of a homage to probably over Baghdad here. I can't see any major land features that would help with that, but it's probably the Tigris right here, and I think it's just an homage to some of our past here and the role that this aircraft played. Could be an updated AI, of course, too. MiG-29 looking really good. We'll see some more shots of that in a sec. Yeah, very dramatic introduction there. Nice cuts between this very, very cool looking interface. Again, sped up there, you can see, again, no surprises there. Su-33s, Su-25s, more Su-25s. So nothing revealed in here that's like, hey, we're doing something different. As I said before, we do need Su something in the game in terms of Red 4 aircraft, but I just don't see us getting those in the immediate future. It'd be fun to have maybe some, full fidelity Foxbat, the Su-27, of course. But the reality on that is clouded by the geopolitical world that we live in right now, and maybe just access to the information and probably other impediments as well. But this, very interesting. Will we see an updated Caucasus map? This is really, really cool. They've done a nice job here of displaying this. So a big task. A lot of people have been begging, asking, complaining, moaning about the lack of a dynamic campaign. We've been promised this for many, many, many years. I think I said to somebody recently about a year or so ago, Nick Gray said they thought they may have bitten off more than they can chew with this. The developer of the Falcon 4 dynamic campaign, which, was more than 2 decades ago now, or at least 2 decades ago, said it may be even impractical to do it and not cost effective, but it is a community demand, and ED has promised that they were going to do it. And so this is the most tangible signs, I think, thus far that it is actually working. Remember, one of the challenges, and I've talked about this in the past in the video of why we don't have a dynamic campaign yet, is the complexity of running full fidelity modules in this level of this number, if you like, along with all these assets, and actually have the game run properly. So there's some significant challenges for ED to overcome with this, and if they have achieved that, there's going to be some very, very happy customers out there. We'll come back to some thoughts on that too. Hopefully I don't forget. I love this interlude here again, a nice little segue back into probably is maybe Berlin or Baghdad there. Nice lighting. South Atlantic there, looking amazing. Cool little detail there, Iranian probably flying over Iraq there maybe, or Afghanistan. And the MiG-29 looking really good. We've seen shots of this already, but it's nice to see in video shots. They've done an amazing looking job of this, so this will help in some way build the Red 4 forces that we need. And cool shot of the Moab there and the pallets within the Hercules. And some glass cockpit stuff, the yoke inside, no doubt, the C-130. Now, this is where a lot of people are saying, hey, this is the F-14D. I got to disagree. I don't think this is the D. I think I'm a little thrown by the HUD here, but I think this is the A variant. And because if it was the D, the MFDs that would be here, and there would be one here as well, would have the buttons around the outside. These are all warning lights. A lot of this stuff was moved, so I'm thinking this is the A. It looks good though. So we cut to this other shot here, and again that's the C-130J. We've got the pull down HUD here, similar to airline aircraft. A little lack of weathering here, so this again, no, it's hard to tell from the shot. The light can wash stuff out, but yeah, lots of shots of this Eurofighter. Oh, it's very, very well. It does. MiG-29, Tomcat, Fleet, the Leopard 2. A lot of people pointed this out. Obviously, here we are in Berlin again, or in the European theater. More of those F-100s, Sabres, and great shot. Another great shot. All right, well, here's the Berlin map being disgorged. I've got some notes here, and I hope my pronunciations aren't too horrible, so I apologize to my German viewers. This is City Hall. Rotes Rathaus, I believe, the City Hall building there with the clock tower looks really cool. They've done a nice job of recreating some of these amazing pieces of architecture. And that really is cool. The Tempelhof Airport. Love the big horseshoe here. Kind of an interesting and unique structure. And back there we saw so we got the Victory Tower here. I'm not sure what this looks almost like the Eiffel Tower in a way, but I'm not sure what that structure is. I have to go through a tour of Berlin here, virtual tour, and pick out some of these things. I've got plans for that for Baghdad too, and I've actually got some real world photos that some unnamed sources gave me from people who were flying over Baghdad in the day. So this is the Fernsehturm Berlin, the TV tower, I think it's colloquially known as. I could be wrong there. So cool stuff there. More Eurofighter, mountains probably in Kola there, and I think this is probably something like Baghdad. Remember we've been, Bagram. Remember we've been told there's going to be more map fleshing out here, more pieces to these maps being introduced this year for both Iraq, that's where my brain was going there, and Afghanistan. So some cool looking shelters there to protect the aircraft from the heat, the sun. Oh, this is cool too. Love this temporary base we have set up here. We've got the washing on the line and the structures around here really cool. This will trigger some people. We've got some Marxist stalwarts here, or communist stalwarts. Lenin, Karl Marx there, and Friedrich Engel. So that'll get some people going. But anyway, might be a trigger. Oh, and there it is, the Berlin Cathedral. What a structure. Pretty amazing. That's a great shot. It's one of my favorite shots in the video, actually, of the cargo door down and the Eurofighters trying to poke their noses into the back of the cargo door. Lots of online videos of that kind of stuff too, which look really cool, where photographers are sitting in the back of the ramp taking really up-close shots of these aircraft. But Eurofighters and F-16s and things are pretty cool. Yeah, great shot. Nice sort of dust effect in the background, or moisture effect in the background there over the mountains, and pretty cool stuff. And the F-15C here, of course, we learned that this is in development. This is going to be a full fidelity aircraft. A little bit of flex in there from Eagle Dynamics. We already have the F-15E, kind of, wherever it's at in terms of long-term future is up in the air, no pun intended. But Eagle Dynamics kind of flexed and said, well, we're going to do the F-15C. Long overdue, I think. There's probably reasons why they haven't done it previously, so it sort of caps off that line of aircraft that we have. The F-14, the F-15, the F-16, and the F-18. So, yeah, good idea. Like I said, possibly a little bit of a flex there too. It is a different aircraft, though, in fairness to the F-15E. Those of you who are confused about that, it is not an air-to-ground capable aircraft. There was always, I think, that intent, but just like the F-16, the original purpose was sort of air-to-air, and this is an air superiority fighter. The F-15E went through significant updates to beef it up to do the air-to-ground role, the conformal fuel tanks, the massive strengthening of the airframe itself. It's a much heavier aircraft, and of course it also adds an additional person in the back there, the Wizzo, for work in the back seat there to assist the pilot in getting the best out of the airframe. So very, very interesting decision, and they'll have no trouble selling that. And Berlin there again with the MiG-29s overflying, and whoosh, here it comes. Targeting pod there, and that's the only image I think we have of the Corsair obliterating true to form, a 0. We'll see how 2025 pans out for the Magnitude 3 team and the Corsair and the assets that they have. Big bada boom. It's a drama. Plenty of Eurofighter stuff there. Probably dominates the show in some respects. That's a great shot. I wondered if these pellets are supposed to be... I thought they were on... maybe I'm wrong there. I thought they came out in a way that they were guided, but I'd be worried about them whacking into stuff as they came out of here, but I could be wrong on that. Somebody who is in the know, maybe teach me that. Actually, I heard a story from an Air Force guy where in one of the C-17s on a long-haul flight, some Special Forces guy dropped his grenade, and it disappeared down into one of these gratey things, and during the flight somebody realized it was missing. One of the crew said, hey, where's your grenade? And they tried to find it. Anyway, they didn't, and as they were moving one of these huge crates off the aircraft, it got stuck, so they moved it back and forth several times. They finally got it to come out of the aircraft, and then after a Herculean effort again, and realized that they'd sheared off the grenade. So very lucky that it didn't go off during the flight. Allegedly. These are all allegedly. Anyway, moving on. All right, so that rounded out the video, and naturally we're all expecting, with so much time left, what else was going to come. We've already talked about the first portion of it, which is the F-15C, so almost low-key introduction here. The usual smoky introduction. Coming to DCS, we have a full fidelity F-15C, which is now in development. So that's probably a clue as it's being not something we're going to see in 2025. The MiG-29 is probably going to be their major project as a release this year. And then they threw this thing out, which probably maybe only the most eagle-eyed of you would have guessed what this was. I certainly didn't know from just these teasers. All right, there it is. So that I don't think was in any way, shape, or form something I would have guessed to come into DCS world. Completely threw me off. Any linear development that I had expected from the team was thrown for a loop. Certainly interrupted my OODA loop because I was like, okay, well, they've revealed the F-15C, which I think is it almost seems unfair. I think it is a fairly interesting addition to the game, and as I said before, I think it's long overdue. And then, this sort of blows everything out of the water because it's a 5th-gen aircraft. We've been told many, many times, and it's something that I've harped on about too. It's very difficult to do any modern aircraft because of the lack of information. And now we have this, relatively... Well, I shouldn't say relatively. It's still a very new aircraft in terms of development for the 21st century. All of the aircraft that we've had in game are relatively old. Some of these F-16s and F-15s, etc., are sort of 50-year-old design board stuff and perhaps even older. So to see something like this for the 21st century, a 5th-gen aircraft, is a massive flex from Eagle Dynamics, and it raises a lot of questions about how they're going to be able to do it. Open source information, sure. I speculated, actually I was talking a little bit to Bogey Dope and Juice from the Air Warfare Group last night. We were just kicking around some stuff, and Bogey Dope made a great point. There's nowhere in the United States that you can get into the cockpit at an air show and sort of poke around. These things are all covered up and hidden. It's very difficult to get information on some of these variants of the F-35. So it will probably be an early variant, but it's sort of a moot point because it, again, in the general scheme of things, it's a relatively new aircraft. I love how my phone likes to beep at the most inopportune moments. Apologies there. So yeah, it raises a lot of questions, of course, about the stealth component, the electronic warfare stuff, and I don't think we need to get too uptight about that. People do, but I think, in fairness, a lot of this stuff is just representative, not indicative of how those features work in game, including even the weapons and stuff. And as the caveat says, as you load up the game, it is for entertainment purposes only. It's pretty good entertainment. It's a lot of fun. And it's nice to be able to imagine this is how some of these things work in the real world. But the reality is there's a lot of stuff that's still, I guess, hidden. I guess, as I said, representative is probably the better word there than actual reality. Certainly in terms of radar, that's all super secret squirrel stuff. And definitely the electronic warfare stuff is closely guarded for obvious reasons. Some of it's national security related. So the other thing I speculated on maybe last night was, I wonder, in this modern era of fighter pilot training, there's a lot of work now that goes into reducing expenditure for training by having pilots do a lot of digital combat simulation, but also digital cockpit simulation, where they are training systems now in the aircraft that are well beyond just the flying itself, learning how to control the electronic systems. I wonder if ED is involved in some of that with their defense contract stuff. Again, purely speculative, but it is more feasible now. We're seeing that with Atom simulations. We're seeing that with Metria and stuff like that. So there is a whole industry surrounding the training of pilots because it's very expensive to train them. We don't have the Cold War flush of numbers to bring people through, and we don't have the high numbers of aircraft too. And the aircraft that we do have are needed often, even though they're old, limiting their time in the air to keep the iron in the sky, as the phrase goes. Then you want to minimize the amount of time that you have to put air miles on these jets because it's limited. So we'll see. We'll see what ED talks about. Maybe we'll have some more revelation in this next newsletter. We'll be eager to find out, and it raises a lot of questions. Coming back to the dynamic campaign, I know a lot of people have talked about wanting more Red 4, which we talked about, and yes, I think it'd be great to have more Red 4. But I think it's also important to remember that in any realism involving dynamic campaigns, between blue and red, for the most part, you don't have parity anyway, because the West, if you like, spends a tremendous amount of money on very sophisticated systems to make sure there isn't parity. We're not going to see, I don't think, and even in the modern era, even with China being a much bigger player than what it has in the past, I don't think we're going to see the air wars as we expect to see them like we did in World War II, where there was, greater parity. We're going to see it much more, I think, like the Ukraine theater. We're going to see it probably much more like the Iraq situation, where they basically hid their assets or used them very sparingly, and eventually, with the superior firepower and weaponry, the sophisticated and dangerous air defense systems that country had were effectively dismantled systematically by superior tactics, superior weaponry, but there were still losses, no question about it. And the other thing that you sometimes see, so we talked about hiding your assets, limiting the use of those assets, relying on other mechanisms to prevent you from, maintaining air superiority. You either fake it by touting you have these very sophisticated aircraft that are really just made of chocolate, right? Or you produce in large numbers, which is what we saw in the Cold War. Large numbers of tanks, which is why Russia still has so many stores, massive quantities of equipment that effectively, pound for pound, is inferior, but because of superior numbers, you can overwhelm your opposition. So there's lots of different variables there to think about, and I still think that will help make a somewhat realistic campaign. So I'm not too concerned about necessarily the lack of Red 4. The only disadvantage, of course, is that if you're on the Red 4 side, you don't have as much choice in terms of how you tackle. But again, from a tactical point of view, your result might be hiding in a bunker somewhere, effectively, while the superior force or the more technologically advanced force kind of overwhelms you. So yeah, lots of thoughts there. I still think bottom line is we needed a dynamic campaign. It's the step in the direction that everyone has been asking for and begging for. As I've said previously, I think one of the reasons for the delays was Nick Gray indicated about a year or so ago that they may have bitten off more than they can chew. The degree of complexity involved in making that dynamic campaign is something we've discussed in the past. And I think there were some pretty decent impediments and hurdles that ED had to overcome. Part of that was also the game engine, which needed to have multi-threading capability, multi-core capability, improvements in the VRAM area, which we now have, and I expect to see some tweaking, possibly Vulkan yet too, that hasn't been implemented yet. So we'll see how the game evolves in 2025. That'll do. It's been a long video for discussing a short video, but boy, was there a lot of content in there. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, and we'll talk again next time. Cheers.